There you have it. President of the United States with Erica, the widow of Charlie Kirk, receiving posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom, a ceremony conducted in the Rose Garden of the White House. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. We will now begin the takeout and take you, as we intended originally, to the Middle East. Yesterday, President Trump proclaimed peace. Today, he warned of violence. Such is the precarious nature of the president's Middle Eastern peace deal. Here is the president earlier today when he was asked how long it will take for Hamas to disarm and if he was confident that will happen.
Well, they're going to disarm, and because they said they were going to disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in an interview with my colleague Tony Dokoupil, said Hamas must not only disarm, but that all weapons must be removed from Gaza, a precondition, he said, for new governance and reconstruction. So much, of course, has to happen first, and already complications. Israel is frustrated Hamas has not returned, as promised, the remains of all deceased hostages in Gaza. As a consequence, Israel cut by half planned deliveries of humanitarian supplies. Also, Hamas fighters have regained control of parts of Gaza City and have carried out violent reprisals. A Reuters dispatch confirmed a video circulating online of Hamas fighters killing 7 men in full public view. These developments have not extinguished hopes for peace. Israel's prime minister told CBS he believes prospects have never been better because, he said, long-standing enemies or rivals of Israel now know the only path forward is acceptance not only of Israel's right to exist, but recognition of its region-wide military clout, underscored, the prime minister said, by the vanquishing of militant or state-sponsored threats from Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. For more, I want to turn to Ed O'Keefe at the White House. Ed, good to see you. Good afternoon. The president said a lot about this situation today. What is the sense at the White House about how well this peace deal, infant as it is progressing?
Well, their view is that that we've gotten this far is a significant accomplishment, and he intends to see it through. That what you played earlier there, him suggesting that they would take the arms from Hamas one way or another, is a sign of sort of where this may be headed next. There's a real chance at stalemate here, that the two sides can't necessarily agree on how to do so, and it seems that is where the president is going to focus next, making sure that Hamas makes good on that. The fact that 4 more deceased hostages were shared today will be seen as an encouraging sign and one worth, marking as they have. But beyond that, the next few steps now are really going to test the Trump administration's patience and attention on this, and we'll see whether or not the president remains as deeply engaged as he clearly was in the last 10 days or so.
And the patience of the Israeli prime minister, also an enormous factor in all of these calculations. I want to play for you, Ed, and our audience, a part of Tony Dokoupil's interview with the prime minister. Let's listen.
Mr. Trump says the war is over, but clearly the war is not over. The IDF is deployed to sections of Gaza still, and Hamas is still on the streets of Gaza. How can you say the war is over?
Well, we agreed to give peace a chance. We agreed that we should. The conditions in his 20-point plan are very clear. It's not only that we get the hostages out without getting our military out, but that we would subsequently have both demilitarization and disarmament. They're not the same thing. First, Hamas has to give up its arms. And second, you want to make sure that there are no weapons factories inside Gaza. There's no smuggling of weapons into Gaza. That's demilitarization. We agreed that that's part of the plan. And we also agreed, okay, let's get the first part done. And now let's give a chance to do the second part peacefully, which is my hope. But if not, I think I heard the president speak tonight. He said, listen, they better do it, or, how can I speak for him? He said, all hell breaks loose, okay? Well, I hope it doesn't. I hope we can do this peacefully, and we're certainly ready to do so.
All hell possibly breaking loose. That's been the status quo for nearly 2 years. So we're at this point where it feels like an overused term, but one nonetheless, an inflection point.
Yeah, and telling her that he, like the president, cites what the president had said there, that this has the potential to get a little more aggressive yet again should Hamas not follow through with its vow to disarm. It's why we have been saying since that 20-point comprehensive plan was released here at the White House a few weeks ago that any number of those bullet points could take weeks, if not months, not years, to fully negotiate out, that this wasn't going to be resolved quickly. And developments, today, and those comments from the Prime Minister, and as we see the rest of that interview, you get a sense that there is still great skepticism and concern about where this is headed next, even though there's great hope across that region that there ultimately will be some kind of a deal. But again, the question here at the White House will be, or that we'll be asking here at the White House is, to what level are Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, the Secretary of State, the President himself, still directly engaged in this and continuing to put pressure on these leaders to get to the full resolution at a time when, for example, today the President spent time with the President of Argentina. He's seeing, we expect Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine later this week, who's eager to get the President's attention back on the conflict with Russia. And there are a host of other domestic and international priorities that the President's going to have to worry about. He's getting ready to go to Asia in a few weeks. So to what extent can he still remain focused on the Middle East when all those other things that can pull in an American president will do so in the coming days?
Not to mention simmering and ever more bubbling trade tensions with China, which may also play out in that trip to Asia as well. Ed O'Keefe, as always, North Lawn of the White House, thank you so very much. John Alterman joins me now. He serves as the Zbigniew Brzezinski Chair in Global Security and Geostrategy for the Center for Strategic International Studies. That is a mouthful, so forgive me for taking the time to get that all read before I turn to you, John. Evaluate what you heard from the Israeli Prime Minister talking about the need to demilitarize Gaza, that he hopes it will happen, but quoting the president, all hell breaks loose if it does.
First, it looked to me like he was very satisfied with the deal he struck. He got a lot. He got all these hostages out. He didn't give up all the things that Hamas had been insisting on for a long time.
And there were parts of it that were in its development that the Israeli government persuaded the Trump White House to change.
And it was very favorable toward the Israelis. All the talk about Palestinian self-determination.
West Bank.
Very, very watered down. The reality is a lot of these things are really hard. As Ed O'Keefe suggested, the issue of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. What do you do with guys who are in a militia to get them to no longer be in a militia and have them lead normal lives? That's a really complicated, complex process, all glossed over. Nobody thought, how are we going to do this? Who's going to do it? Who's going to take the weapons? All left, we'll have other people work it out.
To the point that I included in my open to the show, they killed 7 people on the streets of Gaza City today, Hamas militants, as if to show, A, we're here, B, we still have the guns, and C, we know how to use them, and D, intend to use them.
And we're
on anyone we suspect of not being on board.
And that was, I think, a very conscious decision. Hamas has been devastated. They probably lost about 2/3 of their fighters. They are desperate to show that they still have power. Of course, they're going to do that. The Israelis are also showing we have power. We can still do things. We can still withhold aid. We can kill people. And the Israelis did kill several people today. How much further we are, I think, partly depends on the president deciding he's going to stick with this. His negotiators are going to stick with it. There are other things going on. Zelensky's coming to Washington. He may be going to Asia. I think there are people in the Israeli government who say, I hope the president gets distracted. The president doesn't stick with this. There are people on the Muslim side, the Arab side, who said, the president told us he was going to be really engaged. We need him to be engaged. How that sorts out, if it doesn't meet people's expectations, does it complicate the president's legacy, his reputation? What does it mean for his ability to work? I don't know. All those things are left to the future, but an awful lot of things have been left to the future.
Yes,
the president said, we unstuck it. We got 20 hostages back. We'll work everything else later.
You and I have known each other a long time. You're a student of the region. One of the things that I keep hearing about this in the category of what's different, the White House and advocates for the president say what's different is there is buy-in from the regional Arab world and Muslim countries outside of the region to put in investment dollars, reconstruction dollars, and to pressurize Hamas that this only gets worse and you've got to get out. And if there's going to be any hope for the Palestinians and the diaspora, you've got to get out and we've got to get to the next stage of that. this idea that there will be regional buy-in and pressure that hadn't materialized before. Do you believe any of that's possible?
Yeah, but we're a ways away from that. I think what made this happen is both the Hamas side and the Israeli side said this president has leverage, he can make our lives miserable, and he's willing to use it. But the underlying reality is this deal was made at a time when Palestinians are convinced that the Israeli government is genocidal, when Israelis are convinced that Hamas remains genocidal. Each side thinks the other side ultimately wants to kill them all or expel them all. And if you haven't gotten past that point, you don't have a peace deal.
Right. You have deep mistrust, distrust, fear, and all of those things at the most intimate human level, and every interaction complicate this deal as they've complicated every previous deal attempted.
But let's not miss the fact that an awful lot of innocent people are home. And that's a big accomplishment.
That's a huge accomplishment. Huge. And history will record it as such.
There's a long way to go.
John Altman, thanks so much. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you, Major.
I'm going to change topics here a bit. Thousands of messages shared in a group chat of young Republicans is revealing some racist thoughts that they even worried about being leaked. Well, those exchanges have been leaked, obtained by Politico, and are part of a Telegram chat among young Republican leaders in the following states: New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. New York State politics reporter Jason Bieferman is one of the journalists who wrote about this for Politico. Jason, tell us about this story, how it came to you, and what was exchanged in these Telegram messages based on what your reporting has revealed.
Politico obtained over 7 months of thousands and thousands of messages in a Telegram group chat between, like you said, leaders in the young Republican state organizations in Arizona, New York, Kansas, and Vermont. Now, it's kind of a misnomer, young Republicans, because it's called the Young Republicans, but these are, full-grown adults, 18 to 40 years old. And over the course of these 7 months, they exchanged messages with, extremely anti-Semitic and racist comments. They referred to Black people as monkeys or the watermelon people. They called rape epic. They talked about the love of Hitler with factions of their party, or even supporting slavery. This was a chat with members elected to lead their states within a prominent Republican youth political organization that numbers 15,000 people. And they were in a campaign to lead this organization nationally. My colleague Emily Ngo, we really looked into this and wanted to see, why are they speaking like that to each other? And does this have anything to do with kind of the way that the norms of our political discourse have been changing, some would say, since President Trump came to power?
And Jason, key question, no one disputes the validity of these text exchanges on Telegram. No one told you, oh, that didn't happen. They've all agreed that this is what happened and these are real.
That's correct. We really did our due diligence here. We reached out to every single member of the chat who was quoted in the story. We told them exactly what we were going to say, and they never once pointed to a single quotation and said, that's not true. In their statements, they opened the possibility that perhaps the chats were doctored, but the bulk of their statements were really apologizing and acknowledging that these messages, which they wrote, were harmful and hateful. And, there's already been, there were 2 people that lost their job, that they lost their job before the story even came out. And now, since its publication, we've had 2 other people lost their jobs. So already 4 people have been fired as a result of this story. And we're seeing statements from Schumer, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and others. And we're going to really see how the fallout continues to play out on this.
And when we have more on that, I hope you'll come back. Jason Bieferman of Politico, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Still to come, the Pentagon attempts to restrain reporters who cover the Pentagon. Many outlets, including ours, are affected, and most journalists are not agreeing. In Gaza, a key aid crossing remains closed, while Israel says Hamas has not held up its end of the peace deal specifics. And even in an off year, well, there are big election days in Virginia and New Jersey. We're going to take a close look at the nation's two most important and prominent races for governor. Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to the Takeout. Thanks for staying with us. Reporters from multiple news outlets covering the Pentagon are preparing to turn in their press credentials tomorrow, not because they want to, but because they will have to. This includes CBS News, which with CNN, Fox News Media, NBC News, and ABC News, today released this statement, and I quote, "Today we join virtually every other news organization in declining to agree to the Pentagon's new requirements, which would restrict journalists' ability to keep the nation and the world informed of important national security issues." It goes on to say the policy is without precedent and threatens core journalistic protections. We will continue to cover the U.S. military as each of our organizations has done for many decades. It continues, this will be upholding the principles of a free and independent press. Eleanor Watson joins us now from the Pentagon. Ellie, I'm glad to see you. What are the new rules and what does it mean with you and our colleagues there having to hand over your Pentagon press passes?
Well, Major, it means today we're here, tomorrow we've got to start moving out. CBS has joined a majority of the networks in this hallway in not signing this agreement because of concerns it would restrict our news gathering and our reporting. It's not about roaming the hallways. It's not about wearing a press badge. We have never been authorized into classified spaces. We have already been wearing press badges and would wear another if required. It's about signing and understanding not to solicit information, even if unclassified, that could limit our news gathering and what we report. So a majority of the outlets in this hallway will not sign and will start to move out now and tomorrow.
And that means no presence inside the Pentagon, no ability to go, which I understand now you have to go with an escort if you want to talk to someone in a particular branch of the service about a detail related to ongoing or future military operations. So that is a limitation for sure. How will you and Charlie Daggett and others assigned to the Pentagon for us, Ellie, proceed?
Yeah, Major, well, this office, CBS has had it for decades, covering every conflict since World War II, including more recently the fall of Afghanistan, the invasion in Ukraine, October 7th, and so on. But it's not just conflicts, it's also the stories we've done about service members and the decisions that impact them. The access within the building allows us to talk to officials, talk to even public affairs officials. We're in a hallway clearly marked for media so that we can reach the public affairs office, reach the Pentagon press briefing room, so that when information needs to be shared quickly, we can do that. Now that we won't have access to the building, we will find other ways to report. It may mean making more phone calls. And as you know, Major, interviewing over the phone is not as good as in person. It may mean monitoring Twitter. But of course, on Twitter, you can't ask any follow-up questions. So we will continue to report on the Pentagon as best we can and continue to shed light on this agency that has the largest budget of all government agencies and make some decisions that impact service members and the U.S. taxpayer across the country. We will continue to report on it even after we move out of this booth and even after this camera goes dark tonight.
This camera goes dark tonight. It is a sad epitaph for decades of CBS News coverage led by one of the best in the business, David Martin, now Charlie Daggett and Eleanor Watson. Eleanor, thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. 2024 No Labels abandoned plans, you might have remembered them, to field a presidential unity ticket. Now it is focusing on local politics. That's a bit of a shift. We're going to talk about the group's plans and how they're evolving next right here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. You remember No Labels? It didn't have anything to do with clothes. It was about political branding. It was an organization that for a bit of time flirted with running a so-called unity ticket in 2024 for president. Some prominent names considered: Larry Hogan, Joe Manchin, the late Joe Lieberman. Now the group is weighing in on everything from local politics to the government shutdown. Chief strategist for No Labels, Ryan Clancy, joins me now from our broadcast center in New York. Ryan, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. You wrote in August that the government shutdown was inevitable, if not irreversible. We're in it now. Do you see any end in sight?
Not immediately. Unfortunately, both sides would rather posture than actually get out of this. And every day that this goes on is really just an insult to the public and to a couple million federal workers that do not need to be out of work.
And Ryan, No Labels talks a great deal about the incentive structures in politics that disvalue or undervalue or actually penalize bipartisanship and elevate and monetize partisanship. Right. The shutdown seems to me to be a classic representation of that.
Well, ask yourself, what is it that we need to get out of a shutdown? And you need 60 votes in the Senate to get a funding bill over the finish line. So you need bipartisanship. When this ends, and it will, that's how it's going to end. But ask yourself, what forces in our political system today are going to reward that kind of behavior? Is it the party committees? Is it social media? Is it the email marketing campaigns that get $5 a pop just by spurring outrage? So unfortunately, the thing we need to get a shutdown is for actually leaders to resist all these forces that are rewarding them and encouraging them to continue with this shutdown.
How does No Labels fit into that conversation?
Well, you mentioned earlier how we explored the unity ticket last time, and in 2024. That was actually a bit of a departure for us. We've spent 15 years mostly focused on Congress, trying to get Democrats and Republicans to find some space to work together. And that is very much where we're focused now. So we actually have a lot of our allies in the House, in the Senate, back channeling, trying to create the foundation for some kind of agreement to get us out of this.
How deep is that back channel, Ryan?
Well, right now, unfortunately, all the action is at the leadership level. The leadership has to show a willingness to want to move us off this. And as you know, Major, the argument is caught up in a lot of things. It's about health care. It's about the left's desire to stand up to Trump. It's about the right's desire to stick it to the left. So there are both policy and political disagreements underpinning this. And what we need is some leaders to come to the table and untangle it.
And Ryan, I know you believe that there is a hunger in the American populace writ large for alternatives to the two parties. Polling data about people who self-identify as independents continues to increase in number, but it doesn't appear to have any operational teeth.
So I don't think that can continue. There was a famous statement, I think it was Richard Nixon's economist said, if something can't go on forever, it won't. This cannot go on forever, where the parties are this far from what the midpoint of the electorate wants. The public just will not tolerate this level of dysfunction over time. So in 2024, there wasn't space in that race for an independent candidate or an independent movement. But if this continues, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a space for that in the future. Because right now, you mentioned it, Major, that more and more people every day are rejecting both parties. The share of political independence is higher than it's ever been. Among Gen Z voters, well over half of them say they don't see themselves in either party.
Ryan Clancy, it's a conversation I want to continue to have with you. I hope we'll do it again.
Thank you, Major.
In a potentially worrisome sign for the newly signed peace deal, Israel has opted not to reopen a key passage for supplying aid to civilians in Gaza. Israeli officials say they are keeping the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt closed because Hamas has not yet returned the bodies of all the dead hostages in its midst. Kate Phillips-Barrasso joins me now here at the family table. She is Vice President of Global Policy and Advocacy for Mercy Corps, which provides aid for civilians in Gaza and elsewhere. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Based on what you know, and I know it's hard to know in totality, what's the situation in Gaza? Are relief trucks coming in greater numbers? And is that giving some slender glimpses of hope?
Yes, there is a glimpse of hope in that we've seen significantly more movement since the agreement was signed. We saw something like 800 trucks come in on Sunday, similar numbers on Monday. So it goes to show where there is a will, there is a way, and that these trucks can come in. And this, would remind your viewers, is from almost zero since March. We had a ceasefire before that collapsed on March 2nd, and after that, there was nearly a total blockade on both commercial and humanitarian traffic coming into the Strip. So where these barriers can be brought down, there is a way to get assistance in, but obviously that needs to continue day after day, week after week, month after month, until we address these gargantuan humanitarian needs that have formed over the past 2 years.
How important is that Rafah border crossing?
Rafah is essential. As you likely know, everything that goes into Gaza has to come from the outside. And so every border crossing counts, and Rafah was a key one in the humanitarian response up again until the ceasefire collapsed on March 2nd of this year. So it's hard to imagine humanitarian response at a scale that's needed without that crossing open. And again, not even just humanitarian assistance coming in, but commercial traffic, which has been absolutely essential to keeping people alive, and also for equipment to come in to clean up rubble, for workers to come in to relieve other humanitarian workers on duty and bring in expertise that's going to be critical to repairing critical infrastructure like water and electricity lines that are essential to getting life going in the Gaza Strip once again.
As best you can, describe the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
It's almost indescribable. I have been working for 20 years in this field, and I've seen nothing like this. It's 2.1 million people in Gaza, and numbers came out in August of this year showing, and we believe these numbers are conservative, that a quarter of them, that's 500,000 people, were in Category 5 catastrophic hunger, which basically means that they're starving to death. So as of August, a quarter of the population was starving, and we believe that that has deepened since then. These are a lot of people who are incredibly vulnerable, particularly elderly people and children, and we believe something like 132,000 children are already deeply malnourished. Something like 500 people have died of starvation already. So time is of the essence, not only in getting food in, but even in getting in therapeutic feeding supplies for these children to be able to turn around.
Just to get some caloric intake before they can even start having real food again.
Exactly, and that's the thing is once hunger sets in, it's not even enough to simply bring in food. The body often succumbs to infections because you're drinking unclean water or living in unsanitary conditions like all of the 2 million people in Gaza are living in because they haven't had access to sanitation services. So just a small infection to a child that's malnourished may lead them to actually die of a very preventable illness or disease, and they need specialized and intensive medical care to get them back up to the point, like you said, where they can eat normal food. So this isn't simply about getting trucks over the border with food, but about providing specialized medical services to hundreds of thousands of people who have not received them for 2 years.
What about access to water and basic medical supplies?
And this is part of what goes in on the trucks. For example, Mercy Corps, the organization that I work for, has had something like 1,300 pallets of hygiene, food supplies, and shelter kits waiting at the border. That's 73 truckloads since March 2nd. We haven't had a single item go in. All of our access has been denied. Some organizations have been able to get in a bit of medical supplies, but we are talking about entire hospitals needing to be restocked. Most of them have been operating without electricity, without anesthesia, and have simply run out of everything. So it's really hard to say right now what is most essential when everything is needed: food, shelter materials, hygiene materials, medical supplies. And I would note, here we are in mid-October, the winter is coming. Right. Almost everyone in Gaza is living in the rough, many of them displaced multiple times and having lost coping capacity along the way. So we are in a race against time here to make sure that we don't see significantly more deaths.
Basic supplies, exposure, cold, all of that beginning to conspire against them.
Exactly.
Kate Phillips-Barrasso, it's a conversation we will continue having because this will not end as things develop, we hope for, in a promising way with phase 2 of the peace plan. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We began the show with President Trump in the Rose Garden presenting the Medal of Freedom posthumously to Charlie Kirk. The award was presented to his widow, Erica, who has since his death become the CEO of Turning Point USA, the group that Kirk memorably co-founded. During her speech, Erica spoke of Charlie's legacy and the young people who are still part of that organization.
You are the heartbeat of this future and of this movement. Everything that Charlie built, you guys are the legacy holders of that. You are living proof that his mission did not die with him. It lives through you. And Charlie always said the next generation will decide whether freedom endures. And because of you, I know that freedom will endure. It will. And today we're gathered not only to celebrate Charlie's birthday, but to honor a truth that he gave his entire life to defend, and that's freedom.
Charlie Kirk would have been 32 today. We're going to take a quick break. Takeout, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Takeout. Letitia James appeared at a campaign rally for New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani last night, her first public appearance since being indicted by the Trump Justice Department last week. She received a standing ovation, and here's what the New York Attorney General said.
Now I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up.
I am joined by our political panel, CBS News contributors Chuck Rocha and Terry Sullivan. Chuck, that soundbite is not just about the New York City mayor's race. It seems to me a soundbite that is resonant for the posture that Democrats on Capitol Hill have assumed in the shutdown. We're just not going to break, even if the shutdown drags on.
Yeah, and what you saw last night with Letitia is that she wants to run for office. And if you're in New York, you want to be on that stage fighting this president if you want to win a Democratic primary in New York City.
Right, but if she's already a statewide office holder, her statewide ambitions, yes, they'd flow through New York City, but if she's teaming up with a Democratic socialist,
hasn't endorsed her yet.
Hadn't endorsed Mamdani.
Mamdani, that's the point. So it's not necessarily, it's the fringe of the fringe. Because
there's upstate New York that you've got to tend to. Remember, Hillary, when she was aspiring to be the senator of New York, she went to upstate first.
Right.
Terry, jump in on that.
Mamdani, whether you like him or you don't like him, had 50,000 people show up in the city of New York. There's a lot of people that live in New York, I give you that, but there's Democrats all over the nation that would love to see some folks, especially kids, show up to volunteer for their campaign like that and give hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, crazy sells. I mean, newsflash in
right
American politics 2025.
Right and left.
Crazy sells. Yeah, no. And Mamdani has captured that crazy. That doesn't make him any less crazy, and it does marginalize her even beyond. But look, she was always a marginal candidate. When she first ran, Letitia James. When she first ran, she said, I'm going to go after Donald Trump. That was, as Attorney General of New York, I'm going to go. So this has been her shtick. It's always been, she's playing to her base. It's just more of the same from her.
All right, I want to direct your attention both to the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey. Now, those of you who watch the show, you are keen political observers. You have a sharp eye. So we're just going to roll some polls on the screen. I'm not going to talk about each and every one. I'm not going to name check even one. Look at the numbers, see what the margin of error is up there. We're just going to roll through it. Start with Virginia. How do you size up what's going on in Virginia right now, Chuck Rocha?
Look, this is not going to be popular with my Democratic friends, but we should be winning this by 10 points.
And as we roll through the polls, you'll see it's not that.
Right. I've been running campaigns for 36 years. I've been a truth teller in my own party for a long time. And I'll tell you that when Donald Trump got reelected, we should have a 2018 right now. We're not having a 2018. We're running against a flawed candidate in a year we should win by 10, 12.
Winston is the Republican nominee. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we shouldn't be this worried about it. I think it's the same. Look, I've said on this campaign, I've said on this stage before, is that we continue to run the same campaigns thinking there's going to be different results, and it's just not. Yeah. We need to do something different and get back to talking to working class Americans.
Terry, very briefly on Virginia.
Look, Sears is an extremely flawed candidate. I completely agree with Chuck that they should be winning by a bunch more. and she's a terrible candidate who the president hasn't even endorsed.
She was in Newport News with him with the Navy ceremony right in the front row. He didn't even look at her.
And
our name checker.
So flawed candidate in a state that has been trending much more blue. She should be, Spanberger should be walking away with it.
All right, we're going to do the same thing because you're keen observers. You've got a great eye, my audience. I love you for that. New Jersey governor's race. We're going to roll the polls, watch them, absorb them, take them in on your own. Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican nominee. Mikey Sherrill, the Democratic nominee. Chuck?
Military veteran, just like you have in Virginia. She served in the Congress. She's not a crazy left wing, crazy right wing. She's
should be farther ahead?
She should be ahead about 15, not 10. It's New Jersey. What you see in New Jersey is a failure of the local party who's really took voters for granted for a long time. That's why you've seen Donald Trump overperform there, because there was no ads, there was no campaign, but he went there at the end and folks made fun of him. And I was like, don't do that, because he's speaking to an anxiety within working people that she needs to make sure she's doubling down on.
Jerry?
Yeah, but I also think there's a Mamdani effect here, too.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey, blowback.
Same media market.
Yeah, same media market. I mean, the majority of
Meaning
voters.
fears about Mamdani lead to Ciattarelli support from the lightly attached.
Right. It's like, wait a minute. These people have really jumped the shark here, meaning the Democrats ideologically. And so this is an issue that I think has bled across. But you know what? New Jersey's never been as democratic as
they've elected Republican governors.
They've elected Republican governors, and it always tightens close to the end. So I do think this could be a close race.
So there were several Janet Mills, Susan Collins developments in Maine today, lots of them. First of all, the governor got in the race.
Right.
The DSCC, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, put together a joint fundraising thing with Graham Plattner, who's the progressive in the race on the Democratic side, assailed the DSCC for getting involved in that. Emily's List backed Janet Mills, and David Hogg's group, the Future Leaders, is with Graham Plattner. There's a lot going on, Chuck. Pull that apart for my audience, if you will, or piece it all together.
Let's go back to what I just said, is the establishment is going to establish. Graham Plattner is an oyster farmer who's never run for office in his life. Look this guy up, Graham Plattner, because he is outside of the norm. And I love this guy because he's not the normal, regular, buttoned-up, college graduate, master's degree.
Consultant-driven.
Talk down your nose at a Democrat. He scares the shit out of regular folks, and that's why I think you're going to see folks in the party doing what they're doing.
Does this give Susan Collins a chance to hold on?
It sure does. I mean, look, you're not going to out Susan Collins, and I think that's what you're going to get with Mills. And so if Democrats want to win there, they've got to be outside the box, and you've got to have authenticity sells. And look, that candidate, from everything I've seen of him, he's an authentic guy, and he seems like it's a bit of a crazy quest.
Authenticity works better, it seems to me, in lower cost media market states or contests.
Or a place like Maine where there's lots of rural folks and lots of folks there was small manufacturing there for years. I used to work for the paper union. There was a paper mill in every town. Right. It's been destroyed by the outsourcing of jobs, and he's perfect for this state.
And who doesn't believe the United States Senate needs at least one oyster farmer?
That's right.
Chuck Rocha, Terry Sullivan, as always, thank you very much. The candy does not eat itself, so dig in. Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is The Takeout. Relentlessly curious, reliably civil, checking my coffee mug, occasionally clever. The Daily Report starts now.